Can you all hear when it says that? Did it say
You beat
recording
me to it,
progress?
Annie.
I'm all for a backup plan. Lovely. So we're going to be looking this morning at helping under fives meet and know God. Now, I'm hoping if you are here, that is because that's something that excites you, something that you know is possible, something that you want either for the children in your family or in your church or in your community. But sometimes people struggle with that, don't they? Do you want to just start typing in the chat? Why do you think sometimes people struggle with under fives meeting and knowing God? What are the barriers and the blocks that we see? Oh, we've got some people just joining us there. So we're just typing in the chat, anyone who's just joining us, we're just typing in the chat, any blocks or barriers to under fives meeting and knowing God? Emma, are you able to spotlight me? It's not letting me do it. No problems if not. Tell you what.
It's not coming up with the option.
No, I was thinking that. It might be tricky in the group. That's all right. I've got a little PowerPoint.
I can pin you.
Yes, that'd be lovely. Thank you. Lovely. So let's just see in the chat what's going on. Can't hold their attention for long. They want to be doing games. Lack of focus, special education needs. Yeah, attention deficit. Can't always speak or let others know how they're connecting. So adults don't think it can happen. Yeah, so sometimes there's stuff going on, but we can't see it. Feels like you can't go very deep with them. Distraction, language, understanding. Yeah. So I don't want to start on too much of a negative vibe, but I just thought we'd call it out because I want to say right at the beginning of this that all under fives can meet and know God. It's not something special. It's not something exceptional. It's not something unusual. Parents and carers can help them to do that, and churches can be a supportive community around them. But people do really struggle with this. Sometimes they feel that children are too young to understand, or maybe it is happening, but we don't know. Or maybe that it's something that's difficult or complicated. One more thing to add to the list, one more thing that they can't handle. And so I thought before we get practical, and we will get practical, don't worry, but I just look at some kind of really key truths that we can share with the parents and carers that we're working with, or remind ourselves of if we're here as a parent or a grandparent about what this actually looks like. So many of you will be familiar with this passage in Deuteronomy 6 that talks about how to share faith with children. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. So do it yourself first. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. How are you going to do that? By talking about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. This is me adding in, this is not scripture, but when you're in the car, when you're walking along with the buggy, when you're doing the bedtime routine, when they're sitting on the potty, when you are doing whatever you do as part of your normal everyday. Put them around your house, back into the Bible now. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses, on your gates. Basically, have it as part of your normal everyday. Have it around your house with things to prompt you and remind you and encourage you. But really, this is just the same as teaching them to eat their breakfast and walk holding your hand and chatting about things as you are in the buggy and they're on their balance bike, or you're in the car or on the bus, whatever you're doing. It's a normal part of the everyday. So when you're working with parents and carers of under fives, or when you're thinking about this for yourself, I just want to remind you that children don't suddenly reach an age or stage where they can know and connect with God. When they turn 5 and they start school, they don't suddenly get a badge that says, now I can start connecting with God. The Bible talks about God knitting them together in their mother's womb, knowing everything about them, connecting with them from their very earliest beginnings. And we can affirm that, we can support that, we can encourage parents and carers that they can have a relationship and a connection with God, even as babies, even as toddlers. And as I've gone on about already a little bit, it can be a normal part of every day, not another activity to add in. I think sometimes people say no because they think, oh, I'm still trying to get my head around, reading the book on weaning and what on earth I'm going to do about potty training and discipline and all these other things. And the faith thing just feels like one bridge too far, too much. No, I'll just opt out, thanks. We'll just see how we get on with that. But it's not complicated. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be an extra thing. We're talking here tiny little tweaks, making some faith things a little bit more visible, chatting about some things while we're going along. You do not need to be an expert. You don't need a theology degree. You don't need to have a strong and vibrant faith yourself necessarily. We just want to encourage parents and carers to share a little bit of their faith and to make it part of the everyday. It's also not something you can get wrong. There's no one right way to help under fives meet and know God. It's going to look different in every family or group, and that's okay. So when we're talking to parents and carers about this, invite their ideas, their questions, their experiences. We know there's no one right way, but sometimes we need to make that really explicit to the groups we're working with or to remind ourselves. This is not a pass or fail situation. Every family is going to share faith differently. And while it's great to share resources and ideas, and we want people to feel like they can do it however is right for them and not feel pigeonholed into a certain way. And again, just a reminder that parents and carers are really the experts in their own children. What they need is to build confidence. And as I said again, this may be you talking to yourself, but ask any parent or carer what their child needs in order to go to sleep, or what helps them eat, or what helps them to feel settled when they're worried. Think about the instructions that they leave for the babysitter. If they cry 3 times and it's after 9 o'clock, it's probably the nappy, so you need to do this. If it's, if they make this noise going down, then they need their special bunny and sing this song 3 times. Parents and carers have so much time with their children and they know them really, really well. And then somehow we get to the faith bit and people feel like, oh, but I don't know about that bit. And that's a bit scary, I'm not sure. But actually parents and carers know, hey, my child actually really responds to music. They really connect and it calms them down when we play music. Brilliant. That's something that we can use to help them to meet and know God. Why don't you take a couple of minutes in each day and have a song that you play that helps them to connect? Or my child doesn't like to sit still and talk about things, but we have really great chats when we're swinging on the swing in the park or when we're walking somewhere. Brilliant. That's a great time to chat to God and to ask him things. So really encourage and affirm that parents and carers are the experts in their own children. Ask them to, often you're not giving them the ideas, you're actually just asking them what they already know and then helping them work out how can they add a little bit on or just tweak it slightly to help their under 5 meet and know God better. So I thought we'd make it go really practical now. So we're going to talk about getting under 5s praying. Now in Parenting for Faith, we often talk about chat and catch. So this was Rachel Turner, who founded Parenting for Faith and has written all the books. Uses the terms chat and catch just because prayer sometimes can carry a bit of baggage, less so for under 5s actually, because they probably don't have a set idea of prayer. But it's an easy way for them to understand. You saw how that little girl was talking on her phone. My 1-year-old does this, even though we don't really talk on our phones very much, do we? We hold it out in front of us because we're often on a video call. But even with a remote control or anything, she will pick it up and start chatting. Hiya, blah, 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 blah. Little ones love chatting. As soon as they get words, they start doing that. And that's something they can do with God. And then catch is about it being two-way conversation. We sometimes talk about listening to God or hearing from him. But that sort of suggests, particularly to an under 5 who takes it literally, an audible voice or that they're literally listening out with their ears. So catch just makes it a bit broader. God can communicate to us in all sorts of ways. And often it's a feeling or a thought or an idea or a picture that pops into your head. And we just want to communicate that to our under 5s, that God can communicate back to us. It might be an audible voice. We obviously hear examples of that, like Samuel in the Bible. But for me, and maybe for you, that's not the way that God most commonly talks to me. So we don't want our under 5s to assume that's the only way that they can receive from God either. So how are we going to get them doing it? Well, first of all, I just want to say they don't have to do it in their heads. When we think about prayer, sometimes we say, oh, I'll pray about that. And what we mean is I'll have a conversation in my mind, in my head. Developmentally, that is very tricky for an under 5 to do. Again, I'm sure many of you know this, but it's just a reminder and maybe a way of explaining it to some of the parents and people that you're working with or talking to. So one of the things we encourage is to say that they can whisper it into their hands. We want to be facilitating children communicating with God, not just with us. We don't want to be a high priest figure that gets in the way and says, what would you like to say to God, child? I'll tell him and then I'll tell you what he thinks is saying back. We want to facilitate direct communication, but that doesn't mean they have to do it in their head. They can whisper into their hands, they can whisper into a cushion. I knew a child who used to like to make a tent in their bed and go and hide under the covers and chat to God, or go into the corner of the room, or they can just say it out loud, that's fine. But just make sure that you're reinforcing, hey, you're talking to God, not to me. We can chat about it later if you want to. But this is your time to chat to God. Why don't you tell him something? And we'll chat in a moment about what sort of things you might want to encourage them to tell him. It also doesn't have to be verbal. That example I've used there is about talking, and lots of little ones do like talking, but lots don't. And sometimes they're not at a stage of talking yet. They can show God something that they've made out of Play-Doh. They can draw a picture for God. It might be a lot of scribbles. That's fine. God knows, God understands, and we don't have to understand it. They can show God their new toy and what it can do. He's a proud parent, just like us. So if their new trick, they've learned to clap their hands or sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with the actions, brilliant. Let's show God that. Potty training, I've mentioned it, it's a big deal. When a child pees on the potty and not on the floor, everyone is happy. The parents are delighted, but God is thrilled too. That's a new achievement. That's a new thing they've done. You can tell God, hey, look, you peed on the potty. Tell God how excited you are. Show him with your face how happy you are. It doesn't just have to be about serious and theological and deep things. Let's talk to God. And again, I'm saying talk. Let's communicate with God about all sorts of things that are going on in their life. It also doesn't have to be at a specific time or place. Sometimes people find rhythms and routines helpful. I know I certainly do. So maybe praying before a meal, saying grace before a meal, or prayers or Bible stories at bedtime. But sometimes in doing that, we can make a lot of the focus on that time. I know certainly I, as a child, thought that's when you talk to God. You said, thank you for your food, and you asked him for stuff at bedtime, and that was basically it. But our children, our under 5s, can connect with God and interact with him throughout the day, through everything that they're doing. An under 5's world is an awful lot about playing, right? That is their main activity. That's how they're learning and growing, and that's a lot of what they do. So talk to God as they play with their toys. As you're building something with Duplo, you can show God, hey, this is what I made, or I really like this yellow one. I like the sound it makes when I smash these together. Oh no, my sibling or my playmate has just come and crushed my tower down. I'm feeling really sad. Let's tell God about how that's made you feel. You could show him with your face. God, I'm feeling really sad about that. You can point out which character in Peppa Pig they like that's made them laugh. They can tell him who they want to be from Paw Patrol. Again, doesn't have to be a set time in a set place. It can be a little bit of everything that's going on. We can talk about the weather and about nature, all the things that parents and carers are already doing, conversations that they're having with their children, but they can encourage them to chat to God about those things as well. And it also doesn't have to be planned in advance. Things that I find really helpful to use as prompts for under 5s are emotions. So often if they're sad or happy or excited or scared, that's a really good opportunity to show God with their face what they're feeling, or to tell him what they're feeling, or draw a picture of what they're feeling. Those things happen. An under 5's life is very up and down, isn't it, right? So there's all sorts of things to tell God about and to show him, things to spot as you walk along the road, and things to point out. Oh, I'm just going to go back one. So just to give you an example very briefly, if you were doing this in a home, you might want to, as I say, do it throughout the day. You might want to set some time aside at a time. I'm struggling saying that. Set some time aside. I've just had COVID. I'm blaming it on that, but I think I just can't speak. Set some time aside at bedtime to connect to you, to ask them what's been going on in your day. How are you feeling? And to connect them to God, to say, why don't you tell God about that? You can whisper into your hand, you can whisper into a cushion, you can hide under the covers. Tell God about your day. Tell him something that made you smile. Tell him the thing you most enjoyed eating. But then you can leave them connecting to God. They don't have to have you there in order to do it. So you can say, night, night, snuggle down now. God's with you always. You can keep chatting to him. Or I've left your Bible in your cot or your bed. Feel free to read with God and have a look at the pictures as you go to sleep. We don't have to always make the communication around the parent or carer. They can give the prompts, give the ideas, and then leave the child and God to crack on with it. Sometimes you'll get some feedback and you'll hear them talking to God, or they'll tell you about it. Sometimes you won't. That's absolutely fine. This is not a performance thing. It's not for us. We're just setting them up, giving them the opportunity to do that. Now, I know some of you are thinking about how to do this in a church group or setting. So just very briefly to explain how I would do that with a group of under fives. So we'd be chatting to God and saying things we want to talk to him about or ask him all through the session while we're playing. But if we can, I often take a few minutes and say, okay, we're going to have some quiet time now just to really connect with God. So find a space, lie down. There's nothing special or magical about that. It just helps us to concentrate. If you don't want to do this, that's absolutely fine, but some children around you might. So we're going to keep really still and quiet, whatever we're doing. And I'm just going to give you some ideas of some things to chat to God about. And I'd just like you to whisper into your hands or draw on your paper what you want to tell God about. It's not for me. We can talk about it later, but chat to God. Why don't you tell him your favorite color? And give me a little nod when you're done or a little thumbs up, just so I know you've done that. Brilliant. And tell him something that makes you feel really cross. You can show him a cross face if you like. And whisper to him, what makes you feel really cross? And we talked in the Bible story today, didn't we, about Jesus and his friends. Who's a friend that you really care about at the moment? Tell God who's one of your best friends. And maybe ask God if there's anything he wants you to do to help that friend. Or just wait a little while, see if God pops an idea or a picture or a feeling in your head. Brilliant. And then if you want to share that, you can come and tell me. And I just ask them to feedback. Sometimes they will have had a picture or a word or an idea, and they need a little bit of unpacking. We always say to them, remember to check that it lines up with what we know about God, that he loves us, that he's for us, that he's with us. If it ever makes you feel worried or afraid, we need to talk about that with the grown-up, because that's probably not God. Sorry, I've gone into full children's worker mode there. But just to give you an idea of how that might work within a session. So the other practical thing I thought I would touch on is reading the Bible. But I should have said, sorry, we are going to, I'm going to leave some time for questions and answers at the end. So I can't see the chat at the moment because I can see faces on the screen. So we'll do that. Do hold on to your questions or type them in the chat, and we'll do that in a moment. So reading the Bible, I think we can all agree, prayer and reading the Bible, as Emma mentioned, are kind of some key activities that are really helpful. So just looking practically, what does that look like? How do we read the Bible with under fives? Well, there's a whole range of children's Bibles. I'm sure you'll all have your favourites. You can type those in the chat now to kind of give each other some ideas of what that looks like. But just a few little pointers if this is something that's new to you or that you're training other people in. I always talk about how the Bible is special and important because we read lots and lots of stories to children, don't we? And some of them are made up, and that's wonderful, and it's really fun to use our imagination. But some of them are things that really, really happened a long time ago, or stories that Jesus told to teach us something. And to us, it's very obvious whether we're reading the Bible or a fairy tale, but that's a really helpful thing to point out to under fives. If you're using Makaton, if that's something you do with your under fives or children with additional needs, Bible is you open your hands out and then you draw a cross on the back of your hand to say, okay, it's time to listen to the Bible story now. Remember that this is something that's really special and important and true. Today, we're going to be reading a story about Jesus' life, something that he did. So Jesus really, really lived a long time ago, and this is a story of something that happened. Or if you're reading something from the Psalms, say this is a song, a special song or a rhyme that somebody wrote to God. Just give them a little bit of context, frame for them what it is they're listening to. Now, depending on the children's Bible that you're using, there might be some words that are difficult to understand. You know, a word like disciples, we know what that means. A 2-year-old doesn't know what that means. So you can just say Jesus and his disciples, that's his friends. You're friends with Jimmy, aren't you? So Jesus was there with his disciples, with his friends. And you can get them involved in the story. And this is just as true whether you're with a group or whether you're reading a story with a child at home or one-to-one. That you can ask them, oh, you know, this Palm Sunday, there's a donkey. What noise does a donkey make? Or there was lots of noise, the crowd was shouting. Can you shout, way? Can you make this sound? Can you do this action? Get them involved just as you would in any other story, but to help them really engage with it, be part of it, understand what's going on. And I love to weave in that chatting to God and catching with him as part of the story. So it could be that something happens in the story, say Jesus, people aren't very kind to him. Something happens to Jesus that's not very fair. So you could say the people made fun of Jesus and weren't very nice to him. Have you ever had someone make fun of you? Have you ever had someone not be kind to you? Why don't you just tell God how that felt? Whisper into your hands or show him with your face. How did it feel when someone wasn't very kind to you? And just like, let's just ask God to come close and give us a big hug. You can maybe even give yourself a hug as we just ask God to take away any sad you felt from that happening. So that doesn't have to be a separate thing. Sometimes we think we do the singing, then we do the Bible story, then we do the prayer, but it can all be weaved in because we want to be teaching them that in their normal everyday life, they can be chatting to God about anything, anytime, any place. Well, there we are, they're reading the Bible story. That image, they have very, very white t-shirts, which I thought was a bit unrealistic. I'm going to stop there because I want to leave some space for questions and for you guys to add in any of your thoughts and ideas. We've got another 10, 15 minutes. So I'm just going to get the chat up and see where we're going. But we're not a huge group, so feel free to unmute yourself or to type a question and we'll just explore these things a little bit more. So let me see what we've got. Tales that tell the truth. James Gandon says it's good. Has anyone else used those? With the Jesus Storybook Bible and Tyndale My First Hand. Yeah, the Jesus Storybook Bible, what's really nice about it is that it relates things back to Jesus and to, sorry, I'm trying to spotlight myself again, but it doesn't, I don't think it works in breakout rooms. That's fine. It kind of has a big picture and the whole story of the Bible and relates those things back together. But some of the language is too difficult and too complicated for little ones. So with that, I find it quite helpful to read it in advance and maybe use some of the pictures and paraphrase it a little bit. And the Play Along Bible by Bob Hartman is fab. The actions are included. Oh, what a gift, Hannah. Really nice when someone else has thought of the actions and the ideas for you. Luke and Claire, how do you answer a 2-year-old who says, but God isn't there, when you say, do you want to show God? Yeah, brilliant question. And what I love there is that you're understanding what they're asking. Under fives really struggle with things that aren't literal and aren't things that they can see in front of them. And it can be really hard to make that jump. We've actually got a whole bit on our website and a podcast episode that says it's called Is God There, or is he like an imaginary friend, that goes into a bit more depth there. But I think you can talk to them about different things that we can see and that we can, not that we can see, that we know that are there even when we can't see them. So the example I often use is the wind. I can't see the wind. but I can feel the effects of the wind, and we can talk about it and we can see it coming, and just think through different ways that they can interact with God to do with that. Sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat at the same time. Sally Lloyd-Jones has also written a little one for younger ones. Yes, there's a whole series now. I don't know if anyone knows on that. Emma, did you want to come in on that question about what to do with children who can't see God? Because that is, am I right in thinking that is a developmental thing, that they really struggle with things that aren't literal?
Yeah. It's this hard world where when you're a Christian, you like understand the science, and then you're also like, but the Bible says this, and like there's some stuff that I can understand and there's some stuff I can't. I think what you're saying, I think examples are helpful if you've got friends or family that like have different ways of connecting with God, being able to say like, oh, this is how, why don't you ask Auntie Rachel how she connects with God, or get her to share, like, because then you're just gradually broadening their understanding of what that looks like.
Yeah, and maybe there's another analogy there too. If you have family members who you only speak to on video call, or you send a message to and they send a message back, they may not be physically there in front of you, but we still know that Auntie John, sorry, I was trying not to use the same name as you, Auntie Sarah in Australia, or even a few doors down, is someone that we can communicate with, but we can't see the whole time. But it is hard. I sometimes just say, yeah, it's really, really difficult that we can't see God. I wish that we could see him. I walked in once on a child flat on their back with their arms out like this. And I asked, what are you doing? And she said, I'm giving God a hug. I find it really hard that I can't see him and he can't give me a hug. And he showed me that this is a way I can hug him. Flat on her back, arms and legs in the air. And I thought, amazing, maybe I should do that more. Maybe we should say, it's really tricky that we can't feel God hugging us. And maybe he could show you there's an action or a way that you could connect with him like that. Emily's got a really good question. How do you respond to a child when they say they can't catch anything? Yeah, really, really common thing. And again, we've got a whole section on our website on this. And sometimes it's to do with their understanding of God and what they are expecting. So I don't have a ball. I was trying to see if I had a ball here. So when I explain this, I often literally use a ball and talk about being ready to catch. So sometimes we say, have your hands out, ready to catch whatever God is going to give to you. Now, it might not be a voice. I'm very honest about my experience. I don't think I've ever heard God's audible voice, heard God speaking to me through my ears, though I know that's something we see in the Bible and something that does happen. But what, for me, when I'm catching from God, it's just like him reminding me of a song or a Bible verse, or I might see a picture of someone's face or their name. And sometimes when you actually sit down with a child and give a little bit more time and say, oh, did anything pop into your head? Or did you get any feelings in your body? It's amazing how often they'll say, oh, I didn't catch anything, but I felt very heavy, or I felt warm, or I had this idea, I was reminded of something. Not so long ago, I was sat with a child, exactly this situation. They said, I can't catch anything, I didn't get anything. And I said, oh, that's fine. There's some pens and paper. If you feel like you want to draw anything while you're just having this time with God, go for it. And she drew a flower, and I said, oh, that's interesting. Do you want to ask God what that means? And she was like, oh, okay. And she came back to me and said, it means new life is coming. Oh, okay. I mean, that seems sort of like a general thing that you'd say around plants and flowers, but okay, we'll keep an eye on that. And I said, is it for you or is it for someone else? And she pointed out who it was for, and just kind of looked around the room. And she didn't know, but actually that was a couple that had been struggling with infertility for many, many years. And I said, oh, thank you for sharing that. I'll hold on to that. And if I think it's a good idea to share with those people, then I will a little bit later. And a week later, I had a phone call from them, and they said, "You're not going to believe this, but we're pregnant, but it's really early days, and we're really worried about it, and whether this is actually going to happen." And I said, "It's funny you should say that. I had a feeling you might be, and this is why. God sent you a message through a small child, that new life was coming, and that has given me confidence and hope to pray for you and to pray for this baby." And a little bit later, when things progressed and they told people, I was able to go back to this child and say, when you said you couldn't catch from God, that picture was really important message that God was giving to those people. It really encouraged them, and it gave them confidence and hope. And since then, that child has felt a lot more confident in catching from God and not worrying too much about what it is, but drawing the picture and then asking for more. So that seems to be what's working for them. So it can be just that they haven't experienced it, and so they don't have the confidence. I think that's also true for a lot of adults, if I can say that. But it can be that they just need to find a way to do it. This child didn't feel like she was catching from God because it didn't look like how she expected. But once she realized, oh, I just draw the picture that I've seen in my head and then ask what it means and who it's for, that's what worked for her. But it's going to be different for every child and different in every situation. So it might be that your child wants to chat to God while they're swinging on the swing, or they really like making stuff out of Play-Doh, or whatever it is. So it might be they just haven't found a way to connect yet. I think also we can be really light touch with it. I always make it not a pressured thing at all. Oh, you didn't feel like you caught anything. That's absolutely fine. Let's try again another time, or let's keep playing. I can see you're ready to move on and do something else. We all know under 5's attention spans, sometimes you've got 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and that's it. They're thinking about their next snack, or the duck they want to chase, or whatever. That's fine. They can go and do that, and you can try again. I think as long as they feel encouraged and affirmed that there's nothing wrong with them, and it's not that God doesn't want to talk to them or anything like that, you can just experiment with it and try in some different ways. Do you have anything to add on to that, Emma? No. Yeah, James says, demonstrate it by doing yourself. Absolutely. So we talk about that loads in Parenting for Faith. The first of 5 key tools that we use, the first one is called Creating Windows, and it's just about showing how you chat to God and how you catch back from him. So that is probably for most of us as simple as, instead of praying in your head, just praying out loud occasionally, or telling your child, oh, that person just popped into my mind and I just prayed for them, or I just got a text that someone's not very well. So in my head, I just say to God, I really hope that and pray that you would make them better, just so that your child knows that's going on. Okay, 5-minute warning.
And that is, Anna, I was just going to say that external voice, I think, is really useful, particularly with the younger end of the spectrum. So like pre-verbal, if they're really not at the point of like chatting, if they're literally a babe in arms, speaking out over them and giving them a voice externally, we talk about quite a lot, don't we, as like helps you then transition as they grow.
And I think it's really helpful as a parent as well, because I don't know about you guys, but I feel really silly praying out loud or saying those kind of things. I really had to train myself to do that. And when you've got a baby or a very young child, they don't question you. It's just part of everything that's going on. And so for me, the way I used to practice it was when they were strapped into the car, when we were in the car, I would talk to God and know that they're part of it, and they can hear in their car seat in the back, or exactly the same when they're strapped into the buggy. I think somehow I was more peaceful that they're strapped in and they can't run away and I can just chat to God and have a conversation, and they can hear that. Or I can say to them, oh, I'm talking to God about this. It doesn't matter that it's a 3-week-old, a 3-month-old. I found that really helpful for my own relationship with God. And that's a lot of what we hear, people's experience. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anyone.
There's a question about boundaries, Anna.
Yeah, whereabouts is that?
What boundaries do you set for quiet time when your kid's rolling away, not wanting to engage? How strict should you be? That comes up all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got an excellent video on our website called How to Connect with God Whilst Being Poked in the Eye that I just think every parent of an under 5 should watch. So do look that up. But basically what we're saying in that is it is really, really hard to have a quiet time with an under 5. And you might need to change your expectations. Oh, there we are. Look, Ian has posted a link. Fantastic. You might need to change your expectations of what that looks like if they're seeing or experiencing a part of it. So we often say to kind of connect with God as best you can and let them see a little bit of that. And if you can explain what's going on, that sometimes is a boundary in itself. So I will often, in the past, I've needed to say again and again, Mummy's just having some time talking to God now. This is really important for me because it helps me to know that God is close and to feel powerful and able to do all the things that I've got in my day. So I don't mind, you can play here, you know, you can play with your bricks, but just for 2 minutes while we're playing this song, Mummy's going to be talking to God. So I'm not going to be doing your toys with you. Or you can create an opportunity for them to do it alongside without it taking away from what you're doing. So I'm a journaler. I always like to type or write. That's what helps me. And so for my kids, I've always had pens and paper, whatever, crayons, depending on the age. And Mummy's just writing down or drawing her thoughts and feelings for God. You can do that if you'd like to at the moment. But if you can just give me 2 minutes while we're having this, while this song's on, that's Mummy's time for connecting with God. Or Mummy's telling God something that she feels really sad about at the moment, and I just want him to feel close. So I just want to be really peaceful and calm. You can come and have a cuddle, or I'm going to be lying down on the floor. You can lie down, you can go off and play with your toys. Still in this room, I've shut the door so you can't fall down the stairs, or what, you know, whatever the boundary is there. But Mummy's just going to be lying on the floor with this worship music on. You can do that as well. Do you add anything to that, Emma?
No, I think that's great. And I think if you were to move it into that whole getting them involved thing, and the boundaries need to be about your child's engagement, again, it's about giving them, I think personally, it's about giving them choices and options and saying, I'm okay with you deciding what you're okay with. Like, I'm okay with you playing, but I want you to be in the room. Or like, I'm okay with you, like you can choose to sit here or you can choose to lie down here, but this is what we're doing, and giving them that context around it.
Yeah, fantastic. We are going to have space at the very end. We'll have more Q&A, and you can always get in touch with us. There is loads more of this on our website. I was going to show you, but we've run out of time. But it's pretty obvious. Just go to parentingforfaith.brf.org.uk and click, there's a babies and toddlers button, but also if you click on a parent and then ages and stages, there's a bit on pregnancy and newborns, and there's a bit on under 5s. Or if you click on churches and children's and family work, there's a whole under 5 section. Loads of videos, loads of examples, loads of resources. It's all free. So do make use of that. And we've also got these babies and toddlers videos that we've been talking about that really introduce this right at the very beginning, early stages. So thank you so much. We'll chat a little bit more, but I want to make sure you have your full time to go and get your coffee and recharge. So thanks so much, everyone.